What is up, grinders? Welcome to an MMA Crunch Time. Before lock, way before lock, I am your host, Mike Brown, aka H3 Buddha, for UFC 305. They say on the DraftKings lobby it's a special. $25. It hasn't been filled yet. Let's get that contest going. Hopefully we can give you some winners and some good picks on this. But I'm here with Jordan Cooper, Blender HD. Blender, what are you thinking of this card? I mean, we talked about it yesterday. You could just rinse, repeat yesterday, but I think, after digesting a lot more information, there's some obvious plays that people are going to go to, and then there's some great leverage. I really do think there's some favorites that are going to be good leverage.
Compared to yesterday, we had the sim results come out for our premium members. And you could get combo premium here at Roto Grinders by clicking on the link in the description, getting $40 off your first month. And we see that nothing like the main event doesn't necessarily. I mean, Du Plessis has the highest optimal chance at like close to 40%, but he's probably going to be over that. So he's probably going to be a little bit over-owned, and Adesanya will probably be a little under-owned. But the thing that stands out a lot to me is that like Nolan and Jenkins, the very expensive fighters, $9,800, $9,600, are both coming in around 32%.
I was going to say 33, I would guess.
Right, and they're both going to be like probably 40+% owned. So
is that because of limited lineup builds like to get there? Is that's the whole reason for the 30%?
Well, that's the problem, is that a lot of these underdogs have very low ceilings or very limited win equity. Building a Nolan Jenkins lineup, I don't have any of them. I'm playing 10 lineups today.
You could do it, but it's just
you could, but I don't think it's worthwhile. The fight that stands out the most in our sims, coming in with the fighters that have the second and the fourth chance of being optimal. This fight.
Can I take a guess?
Oh, you haven't looked at it? This fight has a 70% chance, almost a 70% chance of the winner being optimal based on our sims.
I really hope it's not Santos and O'Neal. But I don't think it would do that fight. If it's one of the heavyweight, I'm going to cross off the heavyweight.
That's mine today, fellas. That's mine.
Nope, yeah. It's Tafa Walker.
I was hoping it wasn't going to be
70%. But the Casey O'Neal, Luana Santos fight, if you combine those two, that's around that's close to 60%. So like, I think that's a good fight. I'm on Luana Santos for leverage over. I think Casey O'Neal is going to be mega over-owned. I think she could possibly come in at 40% ownership. So, like, I'm looking at constructions where, like, I don't mind playing Dricus du Plessis or Adesanya. I don't mind playing the main event. The thing is, I don't want to play Here's the group that I've made in Lineup HQ. I do not want to play Nolan, Jenkins, du Plessis, Casey O'Neal. I don't want to play more than two of them in a lineup, and if maybe not even more than one. So like, I don't want to build these like Dricus du Plessis 50% owned, Casey O'Neal 40% owned, Tom Nolan 45% owned type of lineups. That lineup construction is just so duplicated, and it's only so once you play Nolan at 9,800, the amount of three-man combinations even in the rest of your lineup, just there isn't enough of them. So like, that's what I'm avoiding today, and I have a lot like. The guys that I have a lot of are
probably the 15% owned fighters. Those 15% owned favorites are the ones I think are going to be so important, because when they hit 100 points, even just 100 on this particular slate with 12 fights, I think they're that much more important, Blender. Like your Santos, Kulabao, who's another 15%. Oh, Nickel. You weren't high on Nickel yesterday by any stretch of the imagination, but that's probably because of salary, correct?
Yeah, that's because of salary, but I'm much more into Luana Santos in that range because of the leverage on Casey O'Neal. And Luana Santos, I mean, I know everyone submits Agapova, right? So it's like that's not a big deal. But I'm just saying that Luana Santos can wrestle and can grapple. And Casey O'Neill, even though when she came in was grappling a lot, she's been standing up more than not. I'm not saying Luana Santos is a great fighter, but to kill off an underdog like that and Luana Santos hits a ceiling, it's like you eliminate just so many lineups from competition. But oddly enough, Paul Rowan has sort of it right today. My highest exposure fighter on the slate in my 10 lineups is Jarzinho Rosenstruck. Because obviously that's a binary fight, right? It's guys don't wrestle, they just bang, someone's going down, and people are going to struggle with underdogs, and they're going to see Tuivasa, they're going to see him down under, and I think he ends up being 30% owned. Truthfully, I think
maybe there's nowhere to go down there. That's the problem.
People love this guy, and it's just as likely as Rosenstruck just ends him in the first round. And I think it's very similar to who's the guy that Tyson Page, right? Like these guys, like Tai Tuivasa, really, he has enough name value now that he almost doesn't even have to fight, right? He doesn't have to. He really doesn't.
He's got multiple companies. Hey, actually, in fact, Pedro and Tuivasa have like a alcoholic company or something.
Right. They have other stuff going on. So
yeah.
I mean, yes, of course he's gonna fight. He's gonna be a draw at down in Australia.
It's a weird fight too because
Rosenstruck isn't going to be low owned, but I mean he may come in at under 30% owned. So I'm kind of looking at those types of builds. So like my favorite type of construction is to play like guys like Rosenstruck and Song Kanan, and then you could still play Nolan in that lineup, and then you find one underdog and you're good. And I think that's enough uniqueness that it should be.
I think there's a world of $25 winner. Maybe not a solo win, right? But there's a world where there's enough low owned, like you're talking about, right? Those odd builds that can get to the top that you won't be duped to death, but might be interesting up top. I don't know about Rosenstruck because it's like he's facing a guy in Tuivasa who's lost 4 fights in a row, and like you said, he could either be all the way checked out. How many times have we seen fighters that have already checked out, haven't told us they checked out, and they just give up a ton of fantasy equity? Yeah, I mean, we're scattershotting this card as it is. I do think that we keep going to the Nola and the Jenkins. Those are the ones that are somewhat priced off that you're expecting in the SimLabs, 33% for each of those. I keep trying to talk myself out of like taking Jenkins, but I just think that Burns is going to give up so many points down the stretch that it's going to make up for any type of quick winny type Nolan. 9,800. That price,
I'd rather
Mike.
I think if I had a choice between the two, I'd rather play Nolan over Jenkins. This is the one read that if you want to tilt it to the scale. I mean, I'll give you the bull and bear case for each of them. Okay, Tom Nolan, he isn't good. He's not a good fighter. Okay, he has no striking defense, but he's facing a guy that I seriously don't think. Some athletic commissions wouldn't even allow in the octagon. Dominic Reyes' brother. He had 7 years, 2 fights, knocked out in the first round. This guy should not even be in the octagon. Obviously, Tom Nolan's striking defense is poor enough that one lucky shot, maybe he does get knocked out by Alex Reyes. I doubt it. So I think the level of competition is dramatic in that fight. And Jenkins should beat Herbert Burns, but I could see Jack Jenkins being very tentative in the first round because
fight
really,
IQ.
Right, fight IQ wise, I think he's smart enough to know that what's really the only the reasonable path of victory for Herbert Burns, a first round
his arm, go to his arm.
Right. So basically, if he could stay away from him enough, hit him on the outside, maybe not even engage in grappling at all. And if he survives the first round, wins a 10-9, boring first round, like Herbert Burns is done probably in the round 2. Maybe he gets a round 2 finish, and then he only scores like 98 points or something. Like to me, I think the ceiling on Jenkins is a little bit lower in those scenarios. But if Herbert Burns decides to okay, I'm going to try this for 5 minutes and that's it, he can get finished in the first round. Right. He can just come off a clip.
He could also
catch his stuff. Like Herbert Burns, I think Herbert Burns has a much better shot at winning his fight than Alex Reyes does, because Herbert Burns can still submit. I mean, you don't
totally
need to be
stylistically different too. That's the funny part. It's like you're talking about Herbert, who should go for takedowns, should attack submissions, and doesn't usually do that. He just goes in and try to brawl. That win against, what was it, Nate Landwehr? That one is like the most bizarre. Like if they ran that back 100 times, he's losing 99 times. You know what I mean? Like that's a weird outcome in that particular fight. But again, I'm not going towards those builds to try to get to Burns or Reyes. A lot of love last night yesterday morning was for Kai Kara France. And
I mean,
Steve would have to have a enormous performance, like a bounce back, like an IQ. Like what did I say yesterday? It's an IQ test. If he can go out there and try to go for takedowns, I'm going to have interest. But if he's going to try to bite down on the mouthpiece, I don't think that's smart.
Well, I think that as an underdog at 7,400, Kai Kara France has good win equity. Mm-hmm. I think his ceiling. I think his ceiling is low. I think if you want to try for a higher ceiling but much lower floor, that's Dan Hooker at 6,900. The most likely scenario is that Gamrot fights smart. He's a big favorite. He takes him down 6 times. Gamrot wins with 92 points. Hooker has like 14, and your lineups are toast. But if Gamrot can't land takedowns, Gamrot has been knocked down by people that really don't deserve to knock anyone down. Mm-hmm. And you can say what you want about Dan Hooker. I don't think he's a bad fighter, and I think he's a better striker than Gamrot. So at 6,900, Hooker at least has a higher ceiling. But I mean, obviously, if he's laying that, if his back's against the mat for 3.5 minutes around, that wipes out a lot of the point possibilities. So just understand what you're getting into there. Mm-hmm. But I think that this fight will most likely go the distance, and who knows, in a fight where maybe he stuffs enough takedowns, maybe Hooker scores 56 points in a win, and maybe that's good enough on a slate where not many underdogs win. So
I wish we had that FanDuel scoring, right, to stop the takedown points. That would be.
They should add that to DraftKings. Why don't they add like 2 points for takedown defended or something like that?
It is a stat. It's definitely on the board when you see on ESPN app, anywhere, UFC app, they always have it. So, yeah, I do think I've been more drawn to this Gamrot fight in Hooker through the week, too, because there's a lot of ownership here, but, like, there's just so many ways you can go for lineup builds, and it's like if you get a Hooker in there, and like you said, I don't know if 55 points is going to be okay on this slate. Maybe it is. Maybe he's the guy. Yeah, it's such a tricky slate. The Pratis is a guy that's stuck. When you were looking at optimal rates, he had to be low. He had to be nowhere close.
No, he's not low, Mike. He's 28%, but he's lower than Song Kanan. He's lower than Izzy, Jack Jenkins, Nolan, O'Neal, Topper, Rosenstruck, Walker, Plessis. So
he's a distance. But
that's the problem with Pratis is that like you got 5 minutes. And he's kind of patient. He doesn't really throw volume. But Li Jing Wang has not been in the octagon for almost 2 years.
Spinal
neck issues, right?
Neck? Yeah, not good.
But he also has never been knocked out. So, like, I'm not big on playing G.
And there's more ways that they could just kill off the first round with some, tossing against the cage for position or some crap too. The price. But there's a fight that's the same, but at the same time, it's not, because Ricky Glenn's in it with Song Kanan. Song Kanan, I'm surprised, is not higher owned, especially in the lower fields. He'll probably be a first click, right, because of that inside the distance. And you said you were going to play Ricky Glenn.
I'm not playing him. I'm not in my 10 lineups. He make the cut. I'm playing someone
You
else
make
in
the
that
cut?
range instead. I'm playing someone that's totally untrustworthy, and don't do it if you're for the faint of heart. And it's not like he's that cheap. I'm playing Ricardo Ramos instead.
Well, it's kind of a decision between like one of those two ways. If you're going with those builds, you
Right,
have to.
without
You're
O'Neal. I
losing
mean,
here.
these are non-O'Neal lineups because so many people are going to go to O'Neal in that range.
Mm-hmm.
I don't trust Ramos, but I don't think Kulabau is anything to talk about. Kulabau could have the high score on the slate because Ramos could get guillotine. He gives up in half a second in 42 seconds in the first round, or does some spin kick and breaks his leg or something. Who the hell knows with Ricardo Ramos?
And they're shipping him all the way over here too. It's not like they're like, "Hey Ramos, here's your Brazilian card, right? Here's the card that you can get a win." They're like shipping him off to Kulabau's territory, and Kulabau, 8,500. Another one of those guys I told you that fits my mold of like 15%. The problem is, it's not a lot of leverage against Ramos, right? They're essentially going to be the same ownership. You're just playing Ramos for that win equity, I imagine.
And also, I mean, he could rest. I mean, he's a better grappler than Josh Kulabau. So if Ramos decides to be smart, but he's not. But I mean, if he decides to every once in a blue moon, maybe he does wrestle. Maybe he gets a submission. Maybe he gets some flying knee, something or other. He's going to do some spin kicks and something. So he's going to do something stupid that's going to be high risk that either wins him the fight or loses it. So in GPP, that's exactly the type of person I'm going to go for. And especially if I'm not going to be playing, O'Neal in lineups, or I'm not going to play DDP in some lineups, I need someone in this mid range, and I can't rely on Walter Walker.
I was just going to say that you cannot trust him at all. But like, is he going to be one of your top 2 highest owned guys? It has to be, right?
Yeah, he's the second. He has the second highest optimal rate because
yeah,
Junior Tafa, if he falls down, he's not getting up. And I'm not talking about getting knocked down. I mean, if he just falls down and Walter Walker could just sit on him for 5 minutes. Walter Walker ain't going to do much other than sit on him.
Hey, pitter-patter would work just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But all Walker has to do is get 1 takedown per round, and he wins the fight 30-27 easily, because I don't think Tafa can even get up at all. The problem is that Walter Walker sucks. So, like, he could easily go for a takedown and walk right into a KO. So, yeah, this is probably the most volatile fight on the entire slate, and it's volatile from 2 perspectives. One, either guy could win in the first round, and also this fight could go 3 rounds, and the winner scores 46 points because nothing happens. So
that's why there's 2 heavyweights. It's not like we're dealing with one. We have to beat out like 2 situations. The problem is the pricing makes this fight even more valuable. I'd argue, right? The Tafa Walker even more valuable because of the win equity. And everyone wants to go to Tuivasa, but again, he could be. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 45-point win. I got to be honest. Like, that's the world that fight is. Like, he could just get a 50. So that's definitely in play. But I have a way that you don't necessarily like Herbert Burns or Alex Reyes. I've got a way that you could maybe make some money off of this if you've got a great take on it, because DK pick 6 Firefox extension Grinders Live. Have you heard about it? I'll pivot back to that what I was just saying there. In case you missed it, RotoGrinders premium subscribers can now use the RGDK Pick 6 browser extension on Firefox to have our premium props and pick'em projections overlaid on the screen, so you can quickly and easily find the lines with the best value and make the expert picks all in one place. Download it now on Firefox today. Did you know that they give Underdog projections for fantasy points on DK Pick 6, Blender? I don't know if you have it where you are or not, but regardless,
no, I don't have Pick 6 available here.
Just listen to this: 15.5 projected fantasy points for Alex Reyes, 22.5 fantasy points for Herbert Burns. Now, Herbert Burns makes a little bit more sense, but 15.5 fantasy points. And what's the money line for Nolan now? Infinity?
Minus God knows what. I'd go under on that.
That's what I'm saying. There's an edge that I like for MMA is the underdogs that necessarily don't have much to give in that first, or maybe they get controlled grappling. That's where we can get the unders on these guys. And I'm probably going to be entering a Burns Reyes under to be fair for fantasy points and blindly doing it. But yeah, I do like pick six in the prop markets. But main event, you kind of started to talk me into Adesanya. Unfortunately, I think the more and more I look at it, it's a great buy low spot. I always talk about this, right? And when I'm trying to buy into some of these fighters, usually he's what, minus 300 on 3xx on up. Now we got him at a pick'em spot against Duplessis, everybody's favorite play, Duplessis. If he gets a finish, he's going to be the lineup constructions. If Adesanya wins, are going to be insane.
Well, the thing about it is that, I mean, you said you buy low. Maybe it's not low enough. Maybe he's done. I mean, the fight against Strickland, I mean, he did. He really thought he fought well against Strickland. I thought something was wrong there. Something was off.
He's fighting too often. I mean, he was very, very active. Now he's got a full year, basically.
Yeah, but maybe that's a bad thing for him. So I don't know. To me, Izzy's the play to get away. If you want to play Casey O'Neill in your lineup, if you want to play Tom Nolan in your lineup, okay. Now Izzy's going to be low. Izzy's only going to probably be 25% owned. So I think that's fine. You got 5 rounds to work with. He's only 8,300. So even like a 90-point win is fine at that price. The question really comes in is if you're playing cash games, if you're playing double ups or head to heads, I still think you probably stack the main event. It's a mid-range fight. You play both of these guys, but I wouldn't call you crazy if you didn't play Izzy in cash. I mean, I would. I don't think there's a reason not to. You're not trying to score the most points. You just want to get,
Then you're probably doing Cara France in cash, right?
Right, like Cara, even Dan.
That's the only
Dan
other path.
Hooker,
There's
maybe
nobody else. No,
right. There's not much to trust on the bottom.
I can't say you can trust Dan Hooker in a cash game, even at 6,900, because he's on. If he's on his back,
you can't trust. You don't get points for failed guillotine attempts.
No. Yeah, that's another thing we could get points for. Submission attempts, right? Yeah, I just think Adesanya is a tricky play. And what if Duplessis tries to wrestle him? Like, then there's just not a lot to be had. And then they're against the cage doing that, hold each other, flip each other around. I'm so sick of that. Like, it's just, but it is hidden scoring. I mean, long term, when they're doing that little throw against the cage, there's control time there, Blender.
Yeah, but I mean, for cash games, you don't care about the ceiling. You just want, you want some quality points, some secured points. But for GPP stuff, typically the clinching is not. You don't get many points. You want them on the ground, unless it's Cara Rosa or something like that. Or
I'll fight you a little on this because there is
women's fights for some odd reason. You watch the fight, and next thing you know, they have 7,400 significant strikes, and
it's like this though, right? Happens. When they've got the underhooks, right, and they're holding them against the cage, and they're doing this little, and then they're the knees are coming up, right? Those I don't care. That's like
the knees and the shoulders. They're doing the shoulder things.
The shoulder thing is out of control. That one's wild. Like
next thing you know, Angela Hill has 700 points. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's the world we live in. I just hope it doesn't happen with the women's fight, there, because like I say, O'Neill is that's one where I could see her go back to good form and look like $1 million. But it's a weird that fight in itself too. The O'Neill and Santos fight is weird because the UFC doesn't care anymore. I don't think, right? They don't care about building stars. O'Neill was starting to be that girl, and now it seems like they want to use her to get Santos to go up because Santos getting wins in the UFC. I know you're not a narrative guy, but still, like, it's a business at the end of the day.
Right, but I mean, you can only do so much. You put people out there, and right. This is obviously a spot for Tom Nolan to get a highlight knockout. I mean, they don't.
Why do they think he's an A++ prospect? That one makes me want.
I don't think they do. I just think that okay, here's some. Oh, you got screwed last time because you got knocked out. Here's some easy. Here you go, silver platter. There you go. Here's a guy off the street. Have fun with a famous last name and famous brother. That's a lot of this slate. What's going on this slate? We got Johnny Walker's brother. We got a Burns. We got a Walker. We got a Reyes.
Tuivasa, party guy.
Yeah, but who's his brother?
No brother.
Tafa has a brother. There's another guy with a brother. I'm assuming obviously a lot of these fighters have brothers that are not fighters, so they do indeed have brothers, but I'm talking about brothers that are fighters.
Well, I mean, I think Tuivasa wants to be everybody's brother with the Chewies.
I used to have brothers.
TJ, come on, man. Don't bring the mood down. We need winners. Sorry about your brother.
If you haven't seen Iron Claw, absolutely fantastic film. Mike, you'd love Iron Claw. Blender, you've seen Iron Claw, right?
Not yet. It's on my list to do.
Oh,
I mean, it's a
I hope
wrestling.
that wasn't a big
I didn't
scene.
want to see it, TJ. I didn't want to watch it because I already know the actual story.
I know.
And I don't want to watch it and be like, oh, that's not actually how it happened.
Which
That's
is what the actual story is sadder because they omit a brother in the movie and who also died. But just like it's sad, but it's truly an incredible movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. All our fight fans should enjoy the movie Iron Claw. Got to get my little
but not necessarily pro
Agents of
wrestling
Fandom
fans because
plug
you'll
in.
pick out the parts where it's like, okay, that didn't happen, or that's unrealistic, or that.
All my pro wrestling fan friends still loved it.
Okay, maybe you don't have very good pro wrestling friends for whatever reason.
Maybe you're the problem, Blender.
I'm a nitpicker. I'm afraid of nitpicking it too much.
All right. Well, Roto Grinders has a great offer for you guys out there. It's Roto Grinders Premium. We've got an option for whatever level you're looking for. Get yourself a 6-month combo subscription at an exclusive price of $469.99. That's a savings of $250 instead of buying all 6 individual months of combo premium. If you're not a fan of that commitment, you can get a month of Roto Grinders combo premium for $120. Those that want a test run before buying to dip their toes in with a 3-day pass, $19.99. Check the links in the description more for info on that. Last thing, I have a question for you, TJ, on this.
I want to let you know first. I told Devin yesterday when I was holding Grinders Live that hosting Grinders Live. There's nothing more difficult to read for some reason than buying can dip their toes in the water. That sentence is so hard to read.
100 times. So I've sat here and done it week after week, and every time I flip the words in my brain for some reason, and it completely destroys that ad read. I've almost wanted to say it's a food salad, but let me give you a question, TJ. Where would you be on a guy like Li Jiang Leech, right? Seems like nobody wants to play this guy. I'm asking this for a reason. When you talk about win equity, he's 25%. He's pretty accurate at 13% ownership, but like if he sneaks out a win against a guy, typically we go for fights that will go the distance. Prati's expected to get the finish in this spot, but like if it's a competitive fight over 3 rounds, I think Li Jiang Li's equity starts going up. Where would a guy like that go for you that likes, you're starting to get into the MMA world? What happens with him on a slate like this where there's no dogs we like?
I'm going to be over the field just because he's solo owned. But I don't like it. Like it's not something I look at and I'm like, I have confidence in this. I think he's going to win. Not at all. But the fact that he's projecting for,
you'd have to be,
13% owned. Yeah, I'll get more than that. Just because it's not hard. I'm underweight on Jesus Aguilar and Cara France as underdogs.
Me too.
So I'm basically going to be overweight at least a little bit on most of the others.
Is Aguilar's ownership accurate, Blender? Because like I feel like nobody talks about him. Nobody even wants to see that fight.
I have him at 22. Personally, I have him at 22.
Okay, so it's somewhat accurate, but it's just a wild one. First
based on our ownership, we have some ownership differences in our owner. I don't think Gamrot's going to be 29% owned. I think it'll be more like 18% owned. I don't think Urseg is going to be 7%. He'll be low owned, but not 7%. What other things that are kind of off? I think Top will be a little bit more owned than 32%. I think Walker will be more like 24, 25%. And I definitely think Tuivasa we have at 18%. I would not be shocked if he showed up at 30% owned. I wouldn't be shocked at all. Mm-hmm. I have him at 28, but I mean, I would not be shocked at 30%.
Yeah, no, it's.
I wouldn't be shocked if Casey O'Neill was 40. Truthfully, I have her at 38, but I wouldn't be shocked if she was over 40% on this list.
Yeah, that's ugly when she was giving up points just a few fights ago. You know what's also ugly? Next week, Cannonier, Barajo, 10 fights. Blender, what are we doing here? 10 fights.
10 fights.
I want a showdown. I want like a showdown or whatever slate we have. What is it called? Captain mode. I don't want 10 fights. It's just like, we've got okay fights. But your girl Angela Hill fights next week in the co-main event. Hey, you said those little phantom.
Yeah, we got to play her low owned, I guess. I mean, on a 10-fight card, you might as well just cap your ownership and hope for the best, and play a lineup that leaves like 2,200 on the table, and like hope you don't duped.
Oh,
I hate those.
That's
cards.
The world. Yeah, it's not a fun one, but we will see. And I still don't know what they're gonna do for what is it, the Mexican Heritage Night there in Noche
one.
Yeah, that's going to be even more ugly because they're firmly said 10 fights, nothing else added.
I don't mind if they're ugly. Give me 15 ugly fights.
Yeah,
versus 10 with a decent main event. I don't care. Just give me 15 ugly fights in the Apex. I'm fine with those slates.
We once had an Ultimate Fighter on a Friday night and then a night of fights on Saturday. I don't know if that was before you were playing or
that was before. Now, yeah,
we did have
do that now. That weigh in, some fight will get canceled. Dan Ige will fight someone off the street. The last minute.
ESPN won't allow that to happen. They're like one time a week. We can't do back-to-back nights, but we will break that Cannonier versus Barajo down next week. Thank you to TJ for coming in, bopping, and making me watch a movie later on. Thank you to Blender HD for all the breakdowns on this 305 card. If we don't win, we certainly hope you guys do on this UFC 305 card. See ya.